Hey guys, what's up? I'm here to give you guys a recap on the new episode of Sword Art Online Alicization, which is on episode 12. This episode right here looked pretty nice. It had some information that seems a little bit complicated than it has to be, and etc. So, if anything else, let's just get this started. We have to it that Kirito and Yujiro faces off against the Integrity Knight 31 LG, whatever his name is. But eventually we see to it that they did grab a couple advantages at first and able to wound him one time. But apparently after he is forced to use his secret move, etc., he will be able to actually put Kirito and Yujiro into a point that he's in control. But eventually Yujiro mentioned that this guy, he knows his name and says that I know who you are. Your name is LG Wolfsburg. And LG's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm a representative of a Northern Empire that won a tournament? No, I am a guy who's been summoned here and became like, whatchamacallit, an Integrity Knight that's above the heavens whatsoever. But apparently that's not true, and all of a sudden something's happening to LG himself, the Integrity Knight 31, and apparently something just came out of his head. It looked like some kind of triangular, rectangular shape kind of thing, if you guys know what I'm talking about. But before Yujiro and Kirito could like dive into his memories more and make him remember, which how is it that they even know this information? That's a question I like to know. Unless it was rumored and talked about throughout village by village by village and many years to come, then I can understand that. But that's another thing to ask about later. But eventually, Kirito and Yujiro were forced to stop, and they have to run away from a knight riding on a dragon shooting arrows at them. And we see to it that a person came in to help them out, the two of them, and her name is Cardinal. She's a little short stack of a woman. Pretty much you could call her possibly a loli if you want to. Pretty dangerous word to even use nowadays, just to be honest. Helps him out. She therefore asks Yujiro to go get a bath because he's wet, he got sent to a fountain when he was fighting the Integrity Knight 31, etc. Aside from that, Kirito asked the Cardinal about this and asked her if she's outside of the system of this thing called the Underworld. Of course she said, yeah, I am. I'm pretty much was a former of the regulator of the Underworld. And I know you are not part of this program. Unregistered Kirito whatsoever, and therefore she decides to tell him the entire story about what happened in the underworld. Apparently there were 4 gods, if you want to call it, but apparently there were actually humans created. She therefore further explains of what just happened, of how they raised crops, raised livestock, etc. Something about the original 4 that was created in the underworld, etc. But we see to it that they had intelligence of the highest order in this world. But here's one problem though. There was one of the children actually had inherited selfish desires and evilness to possess and rule. And apparently we see to it that she further explains that it was actually her sister, and her name is Quinella. And we get to know a little story about her where she somehow came into rule. Like, she was told by her father that you have this kind of thing called system and you could use it to your advantage whatsoever, and she further goes into a rampage against deadly, very innocent animals to increase her system authority, which I'm trying to understand how in the hell are you able to do that in the first place, you know, that kind of thing. Because it seems that to me she killed a lot of animals, not to mention healing someone's leg and been very helpful to many people, and somehow she gotten some high system authority, etc. Eventually, as time goes on, she will build a tower that will be known as Central Cathedral. But eventually, as her town and everything else grows bigger and bigger and bigger, she gets older and weaker each century, or possibly whatever time is passing by in that underworld, etc. As time goes on with the situation, we see to it that she tries to go into some kind of system inspect whatsoever, and whether by coincidence or possibly whatever the situation is, she's able to summon a system where she is in her late teens, revert her age to late teens, etc. But what's worse is that somehow she would like go to a system where she would like stop that system from being above her, like in terms of authority and being God, if you want to call it in simple words. She wanted to like destroy that system or take it over. But apparently, because of that system has its own authority, thanks to the humans that created it, like outside the underworld. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Sorry if I made it very complicated. Forgive me on that. But aside from that, somehow she ends up having some strange occurrence after one day of sleep, and she calls herself administrator, and she becomes the top ruler of the entire underworld. In other cases, if I had to put it in simple words, which I don't take credit for, someone told me in simple words, somehow she sold her soul just to rule forever in that form she's in, etc. So yeah, pretty much like Quinella at a young age in the underworld, which is not a real person, if anything, if you had to say so yourself, turned out to be evil, wants to rule after somehow gaining a lot of ranking in her system authority, if anything, which we don't really know how that's supposed to work, etc. Because it looked like to me she killed a lot of small animals, ends up healing someone's leg, being useful to everyone else, and somehow becomes this mighty god that everyone seems to worship, if anything. Eventually, knowing that she wants to rule forever due to the fact of the sinister personality of the original four or someone else, she wanted to like rule forever. Yeah. And apparently somehow she managed to do that, etc. and calls herself administrator, as Cardinal explains the entire story to Kirito. So, in other words, without a lot of detail, Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh fought the Integrity Knight 31, but it had to stop at stalemate due to another Integrity Knight interrupting. They end up being saved by Cardinal. Cardinal tells Yu-Gi-Oh to go get a bath, and Kirito and Cardinal ends up having a conversation while Cardinal explains what just happened, why this happened, and who was in total control, etc. So yeah. Preview of next episode title, I don't remember, but one thing for sure, hopefully there'll be more information to come about later, but we'll have to see. Aside from that, pretty simple episode, and how our antagonist came to be and what she did in order to get where she at. So yeah, don't know what's about to happen, but it's not going to be very pretty from here on out. So until then, I will see you guys in the next video. I'm Alpha Zero, people. Have a good day. And I'll see you guys next time, right? Peace out. Bye-bye. Toot-toot-toot!